let's be clear what's happening in this country. It's Nazism. Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
If you've been active on social media anytime over the past decade, chances are you've probably been called racist at some point. Maybe even for something as simple as disagreeing with someone. But what does that word really mean in 2024? Is society truly this bubbling mess of bigotry, or is something else going on? In his new mockumentary, Am I Racist?, Matt Walsh takes us on a satirical journey exploring the modern obsession with race, interviewing everyone from academics to everyday folks. Whether you're a fan of his or not, this film is definitely getting people talking. With mainstream critics choosing not to review it, it's clearly a divisive one. So, is Am I Racist really that much of a problem? Is it worth the watch? Stick around and let's break it all down. I'm Olu James, and this is Hit or Miss. Let's get this out of the way up front. Matt Walsh's Am I Racist is a mockumentary that's bound to stir conversation. The film takes a satirical swipe at modern society's obsession with race, and while it's not perfect, it's definitely entertaining and surprisingly sharp at times. Whether you love or hate Walsh, this is a film that's going to make you think and probably laugh along the way. So, is it as bad as some might claim? Not really. In fact, there's quite a bit to like here, even if you don't always agree with its underlying message. The basic premise? Walsh, frustrated with constant media messaging about systemic racism, embarks on a journey to find out if he, and by extension, all of society, are truly as racist as the headlines would have us believe. The film unfolds with a mix of real interviews, comedic skits, and some pretty outrageous moments, all aimed at poking fun at the hypocrisy and contradictions in today's race discourse. One of the surprising strengths of Am I Racist is Walsh's comedic timing. He doesn't go for over-the-top antics like a Sacha Baron Cohen-style Borat. Instead, he plays it straight, which is where much of the humor lands. Walsh adopts an almost naive persona, asking seemingly innocent questions that end up exposing the absurdity of some of the answers he gets. It's classic deadpan, and when it works, it's genuinely funny. Take, for example, a scene where an academic tells Walsh that his daughter would be racist if she doesn't like Disney's Moana, and also racist if she does like Moana and wants to dress as her for Halloween. Walsh plays the bewildered dad to perfection, letting the audience absorb just how ridiculous this line of reasoning is. The humor comes not from making fun of race, but from highlighting the contradictions in the way we talk about it today. Walsh also gets random people on the street to sign a petition to paint the Washington Monument black, which, believe it or not, almost everyone agrees to. It's one of those moments that's funny because of how awkward and uncomfortable people are when faced with something they don't really agree with, but don't want to argue against. It's a clever jab at the kind of social pressure that leads people to agree with things they don't fully understand. The mockumentary isn't just about getting laughs, it's about raising some legitimate questions. Walsh points his satirical lens at the cottage industry that has sprung up around DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, training, and anti-racism activism. The film suggests that many of the people profiting from these movements aren't necessarily solving problems, they're perpetuating them to keep the money flowing. The film's funniest and perhaps most pointed scene involves Walsh guilt-tripping an anti-racism author into paying $30 in reparations to one of his black production assistants. It's absurd, yes, but it underscores the larger question of whether some of these solutions to racism are really helping or just symbolic gestures meant to make people feel good. And that's where the film shines. It forces you to question things that you might have taken for granted or simply never considered. Are the experts in these fields really offering meaningful solutions, or are they creating problems to solve? Walsh doesn't answer that question for you, but he sets it up perfectly for you to decide for yourself. Walsh's deadpan delivery and knack for keeping a straight face in ridiculous situations work well, but what really helps the film is its structure. There's a clear narrative thread, with Walsh playing the role of a clueless white guy trying to decenter his whiteness, a concept as confusing to him as it is to many of the people he interviews. The film builds in momentum as Walsh moves from clueless interviewee to someone who is clearly in on the joke, yet still pretending not to be. While some of the skits, like Walsh pretending to be a clumsy waiter at a fancy dinner party, fall into pure trolling territory, Most of the interviews and interactions have a sharper edge. Walsh doesn't just go for cheap laughs. He gets people to reveal their own contradictions, and that's where the real humor and insight lie. The disguise, while laughably ineffective, adds another layer of humor. It's clear Walsh is recognized by some people, but it doesn't seem to matter. The film's subjects continue talking, and in doing so, they often expose the very absurdities Walsh is trying to highlight. Am I Racist? Isn't without its flaws. The filmmaking is decent at best. Some of the scenes go on a bit too long, and not all of the jokes land as well as they could. There's also the inevitable criticism that by making fun of race discourse, Walsh is downplaying the reality of racism. While it's a fair point, the film isn't about denying racism's existence. It's about poking fun at the industry that profits from racial tension. Still, it might have been worth acknowledging that, despite the mockery, racism is a serious issue that shouldn't be trivialized. In the end, Am I Racist? Is better than you might expect. It's a clever, if at times shallow, mockumentary that will make you laugh and think if you're open to it. It's not going to win over anyone who already dislikes Matt Walsh, but for those who enjoy sharp satire and a bit of intellectual prodding, it's definitely worth a watch. Sure, not every joke lands, and yes, it could dig a little deeper in places, but overall, it's an entertaining and thought-provoking film. If you're tired of the same old race discourse and want something that takes a different approach, give it a shot. My final rating is 3.8 reels out of 5. What did you think of Am I Racist? Did it make you laugh?
Yeah, boy.
Or did it miss the mark for you? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more honest reviews. Now that's done, I'm off to grab a drink.
Okay.